Welcome to the Faster Podcast by FLO Cycling, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything that makes you faster on your bike. This is episode 15, and today we have Emmet Kelly, Jimmy Seear, and Rachael Norfleet joining us on the show. All three of our guests are experienced triathletes who know a lot about qualifying for and racing in Kona at the Ironman World Championships. Listen to this episode to get advice on how you can go faster and hopefully qualify for Kona yourself. All right, we are here in Kona with Emmet Kelly. He is racing in the men's 35 to 39 age group, which is the most competitive age group. Is that correct?
Yep, the 35 39 won it last year.
Okay, won it last year. So we're going to talk to Emmet today a little bit about what it took him to get here on the island. And last year, just before the race, he had a pretty bad crash and broke, was it a class 4 break in your collarbone?
Yeah, I broke my collarbone in two places, separated my shoulder, and lost a lot of skin off everywhere to hit the road.
He showed up at our Kona breakfast party, and he was not in good shape. Poor guy was in pain. And anyway, we want to talk to him about how he overcame that obstacle. I mean, getting to Kona and racing in Kona is a lot of people's dream. So, you know, once you get here and then your dream is kind of crushed, how did he overcome that rally and come back here and get here again this year? So let's just start with where did you qualify for the race?
I qualified in Bolton, England.
Okay. And what was your qualifying time?
It was a 9:34.
Wow. So super quick.
It was quick. I finished 9:34, 10th overall, and I think I did one of the faster run splits.
Okay. What was your run?
I think it was a 2:56 or 2:54.
Ooh. Yeah, that's moving
on a pretty uppy downy course.
Uppy downy course. I like that. So did you have any past experience with endurance sports, swimming, anything before you got into triathlon?
No. I'm a surfer, a kite surfer, a climber, and my foray into endurance sports was I ran a half marathon. I never ran over 10K before. Ran a half marathon. I was telling some friends about it in a house party, and they said, yeah, that was okay, but you'd never run a marathon. So 20 days before a marathon, there might have been a couple of salads involved. And he said I couldn't do it. And 20 days, signed up, no training, ran a marathon.
And what was your split?
I ran a 4:17.
Okay. So tons of improvement then. So you didn't walk into this super talent. I mean, obviously talented if you can run a marathon in 20 days, but you weren't running a 3:10 off of 20 days.
No. I did a bit of training and I went back to the next year. I took an hour off the time, and that at 3:17, and that's, well, let's see how Saturday goes. But 3:17 has been my slowest marathon on or off the bike since.
Really? And how old were you when you did that first marathon?
Oh, I don't know. In my 20s, late 20s.
Okay, so you've been training for a number of years now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Started off with the Don Fink plan, time push triathlete, and then fell into Trainer Road from I Am Talk podcast, and then from there just kept on picking up more and more and more information.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
Okay.
Stuff. So to give our listeners a little bit of an idea of what it takes to get here to race in that category, you said your FTP is what?
300.
300, and you weigh 68 kilos?
Yeah, race weight is about 68 kgs.
So, okay, we just did the math on that. What was it? 4.41 watts per kilogram. So about 4.4 watts per kilo to get here. And when you're out on the course and you're racing, what is your average power, normalized power for the day?
My normalized power for Bolton was 225.
225.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. That's really impressive. Yeah. But pretty far below your threshold when you think about it.
Yeah, but also I was banking on my run because it's so easy to go out and smash. Have a sub 5 bike and then have a great walk.
Yep.
So I was banking on a good run, and when you see the guys straight out of water past you, and you're looking down at and you're going, well, I don't know, this is my half Ironman watts. I'm not going to hold this, or you're going past threshold.
And that's a big thing. You hear that all the time. People don't race their own race. They get stuck in their head. Someone passes them, and so they got to keep up. It's even you're out here on the. Chris was saying he was out riding this morning, and it's out for a training ride, and he was just out doing base miles or whatever, and he passed somebody, and then the guy passed him, and then back and forth, and in a race.
Like, dude, you got to race Saturday to chill out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's a lot of that, and also though, at every other race, you are the pointy end of the stick.
Yeah.
Here, you're cannon fodder.
Yeah, you're in the middle. Yeah.
You're racing yourself. everybody here swims an hour. Everybody here, like on a flatter course, has a 5-hour bike. Everybody here runs like a 3 to 3:30 run, you know, like you're racing yourself. And that what makes this course harder because you literally can't get away from yourself.
Well, I mean, you're with, thousands of athletes, but at the same time, you're really by yourself on that because you have to race your own race.
Oh, you have to race your own race. But like it has to be a mental check because there'll be so many, like they say, maybe drafting's an issue or maybe there's packs, but everybody is racing at, their X watts per kg and they're running. We're all the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so this is your first Kona, right? This
is my first Kona. Last year, it was a windy day, and I thought it was a normal enough day. And I suppose I didn't treat the conditions with as much respect. Being from Ireland, it's open to the Atlantic. We get hit by wind. I was like, hey, wind, no bother. And it was windy. It was proper windy, even to the point that like we stopped and we saw a huge dust devil just come up and it grabbed debris and it whipped across the road, and a group of guys stopped and they were looking at each other, and I thought it was normal enough, so I laughed and continued. And then on the way down 10 k's from Waikoloa, leaning into the wind, thinking about what you guys said on a podcast the previous year, cycle faster, the wind doesn't affect you that much. And at 54 kilometers an hour, leaning into wind, a car passed me close, and it took the wind, so I readjusted. And then I got hit by a gust. Yeah. And then I had the very, very light front wheel. And I hit the deck, sliding onto the lava fields, and then deciding to put down my hands and my helmet to stop. You lose flesh on the road. You lose skin on the road and chunks of flesh when you hit the lava field. So it was like lean. Oh. So that was me. And when I met you, I ate all the donuts in your house. So I had nothing to do.
For people that don't know, we have a Kona breakfast party every year, and so last year, Emmet came over, and it's for our athletes. And Emmet rides FLO wheels, and he came over and he walked in the door with a sling on his arm, and I'm like, oh, what happened here? And he told us the story. Obviously, he went down. He had a quick introduction to turbulence. You know what that's like now. But I've never seen a happier guy for his situation, and it was on it. To be honest, he really made the best of a bad situation, and we had a previous episode on like sports psychology. We were just talking about this before this started, like the monkey brain and how that stuff can get in your head. But I just think your positive attitude overall. I mean, like you say, you came in and you ate 12 donuts. Which actually this year we don't have donuts because nobody wants to eat donuts. So we bought so much food last year because we just didn't know what people would eat, and we realized that everyone's a couple days away from an Ironman and they're eating like birds because they don't want to be out for race day. So we had so much. We ate for 3 or 4 days. We were inviting everyone over from every other company to come eat our food. We couldn't get rid of it.
Guys, if you had beer this year, I'd still drink it.
Yeah, well, you're Irish, though. That's So let's talk a little bit about your training, because you got 2 kids at home, right?
I do.
And work full-time job.
Yep.
Busy guy. What are some of the things that you have done to fit a full job, 2 kids and everything in, and still get here to Kona in a blazing fast time?
Get up early. I have a very supportive wife, but again, it's kind of single parenting sometimes because she's in the gym. She's a CrossFitter, and she's in the gym 5 days, kind of sometimes 6 a week. So we take separate mornings, and then I get something done at my lunch. On my lunch break, I'll get a quick run, get a swim in on the way home. I'm a member of 2 gyms.
Yep.
For the simple reason is you can sit in traffic for 40 minutes. If I leave late, or if I leave a little bit early, I can beat traffic, get a 40-minute run in, and then pick up the boys.
Yeah.
So in that respect, it's just time management, and then having the support on the bigger weeks, or been able to tag in and just go, look, I need a little bit more help, but you have to give back. Like we have our date night. Yeah. We have like at least every month. My wife literally writes down a list of stuff we have to do within that month, and so everybody has to be happy. And again, once the kids are like taken care of and their first priority, and then they're okay. Then you can train away.
Timing, planning, and just teamwork. Really,
it is. And I'm very, very lucky to have a 9 to 5. So I'm not on shift work. It's not regimented. Like I'm very regimented in life, and the kids get up early. So one of us is just talking to them, or when you're on the turbo trainer in the morning, like, come out and I get high fives and they're just chatting to me,
Yeah. That's
So
super cool.
what kind of volume are you putting in a week? Let's just look at the bike for now.
Yeah.
Total volume, and then we'll go down to the bike. So total volume.
I'd say it's somewhere up at about, at the peak, maybe 20 hours.
Okay.
It's not like it's 15 to 20 hours, but I generally tip away at about 15, and just change the intensity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on the bike, how many hours are you putting in on the bike a week?
Whatever the trainer road plan is. I think it's
Which one are you following?
a mid-volume.
Mid-volume?
Yeah, mid-volume, the full distance plan.
Okay.
Simple reason being, at a mid-volume plan, I can maybe add something to it. But if you were going through your tick list and you're getting all the sessions done,
Yep.
you feel better about yourself,
Yep.
and you can be happier walking away. If you're looking uphill the whole time and you're not getting sessions done, then that might play with your mind a little bit. So
Right,
I'd
yeah.
rather get something like complete and then I can add to. So I used to do their morning session, which would be your 0.8s or 0.9 IF, get a swim in at lunch, and then do a league race, and probably bike racing in the evening again. I could cope with that volume,
Right.
and I could just put it together. And
That's a really cool way to look at it. You have a base number of rides and training things that you want to get in, and if you get extra, it's just extra. So you don't set the bar high and always feel disappointed. You set it where it's reasonable, and if you have the time to get extra stuff in, you do it.
yes,
Yep.
That's really
like
cool.
the goal setting thing where you have you try to attain the actual goal of the thing, or you accomplish each step along the way, and so it's a way to keep yourself motivated and positive.
yeah, and also I think even you'll see at the dinner here, like the thing is like when they ask people to stand up, so they go, okay, everybody here their first time, they stand up, and you look at the crowd and you're like, oh, first timers, okay, everybody's like me, and then they say, okay, everybody who's been here twice, stand up. There's a lot of guys, and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6,
Yeah.
and the whole way to Ken Blah, 36 times qualified.
Somebody's been here 36
Yeah,
times. this year.
yeah.
Wow.
He's endurance sport travel, Irish roots, legend.
There you go. Yeah.
And but yeah, like that, he's qualified legitimately to be here. But you see the numbers stand up. Like one of the Irish guys has been here 9 times.
Yeah.
And he's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
You take inspiration from those guys.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong. But yeah, once you have the numbers cracked.
Yep.
Yeah. So talking about inspiration, last year after your crash, I'm assuming that you probably went through a bit of a phase where you probably dipped a little bit.
Yeah,
How did you get that inspiration to pick yourself back up and get back out here?
I think once I hit the road, first off, I was over with a buddy of mine, and Owen Marston's wife was driving us to the hospital. We were laughing because I stood up after that crash. I knew I was going quick, and I had just broken my collarbone. Like not even just, it was just my collarbone. I stood up. I was fine. I was holding my arm, but
It's
like
that pesky collarbone, though, right? It's
yeah,
kind of thing. Yeah.
it has a plate and 12 screws now to keep company. But like I stood up. If you jump out of a car at 54 kilometers an hour, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And if you can stand up after it,
Good.
And then like, you hear of so many things, bad things happen to guys who fell off bicycles, but I didn't. I stood up and I was still okay, and I could go home to my kids and I could come home from this island. Like triathlon is what we do. It's not necessarily who we are.
Yeah.
And once you have that separation, and I was quite happy. Look, I was injured.
I think that's really important. One of the things with this sport is because it takes so much time and because there's so much involvement, and probably because it takes a bit of a obsessive mentality to not only excel. And I'm not saying that everyone that does this is obsessive, but you can sometimes lose focus on what's important. And the fact that you're saying that your kids are number one, your family's number one, and this is a privilege to do this. It's that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. Have you seen the Tim Don documentary?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, that guy's incredible. I mean, he's got the bird cage on, and he's
The halo, and
just happy to be doing anything,
Yeah.
and he's on his bike, and he's in the gym lifting weights with a full halo on, and
it's nice. Like when I came home, the hardest thing that I did was like I couldn't pick up my kids.
Yeah.
Because I physically couldn't pick them up, and then I couldn't like ever put a child in a car seat who doesn't want to go into a car seat when you've only one arm. You know,
yeah, that's a fight.
you can't pin him in and click it. I brought my son to the playground, and a woman came up and said, "Oh, he's not your son." I went, "Yeah, he is." I can't push him in because I have the broken collarbone. Like, I couldn't at the time.
Yeah.
She's like, "Okay, I'll help you," and she was pinning him in, and I was clicking him, you know. But just that was the biggest. When you're here, it's okay. Because myself and my wife were on our second honeymoon, but when I was home, it just started to hit like you an extra. Like, I took a week off work because I get and it was the midterm, so the kids were out of childcare in the mornings, and I had them, and I was like, "Don't touch me." You know, you get the ninja chop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So it seems like your overall theme with this is you just make small victories, when you can, and you look, instead of focusing on really big goals that are hard to accomplish, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time,
That's
right?
it, yeah.
And that's how you've gotten through, your training, your recovery, your comeback from the crash, the whole thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say, was this ever when you first started triathlon, was this the goal? Was Kona the goal? And did you even think that it was a possibility?
Everybody who signed up to an Ironman just goes, "Oh yeah," like, even if you ask about triathlon, it's like, "Oh yeah, I do triathlon." "Oh yeah, you've been to Kona." You're like, that's a little different, but everybody who signed up for an Ironman, like with the legacy programs and everything else that they're doing now, it's it's great, and like you just dream of being over here, and then when you're over here, you're like, "Whoa, it's hot, it's hard." It's like, why are they doing 740 lows everywhere else, and they're like, and they haven't broke 8 here? And if the very, very top pros come here in the best condition and they're slower, like, that tells you so much about the conditions here. And like just how hard the course is.
Yeah, and it's crazy too when you get here just how fit everybody is. Like, you go out for a ride, and I mean, I'm about your FTP, your weight, right? So in your local town, you go out for a ride, you don't get past that often. I went out for a ride this morning. People were just blowing by me like I was looking for a parking spot. It's like constant. There's just so many good athletes here. Everyone's in great shape. So it's kind of daunting for some people when they first get here to see that.
Oh, it is. And then, but like, I think there's a huge bit of Kona fever too, because guys get out of here and they're going up like Palani at, way above
450 watts.
And also, like, I've been to follow your podcast, and everything about it is like the decisions, what happens in your podcast. Everybody who's qualified here does those, the checklists. They've encountered every part of your podcast, all your guests. For the simple reason is that's the checklist and the work you have to do to get here. That's just,
absolutely.
You pick up you read loads, you learn loads, and it gets you.
And it's interesting because, if you've never been here, anybody that's never been here, you hear all the time that it's an amazing thing, and it really is. It's like the Disneyland of a place for any triathlete, really. And when you're here, it's hard not to get involved in the atmosphere, the environment. You go down to the midnight finish. It's an amazing spot to be, and it's great you're back, and it's great you're going to be racing this year. And
like, when I left Ireland on my last spin, it was 4 degrees Celsius. And I came out here for my first one. It was 40. So, that's why I train in a man cave on a turbo trainer, like, at 28 degrees.
Yeah.
Just turn up the heat. Just to try get a glimpse of what it's like here.
Awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been super cool. Best of luck out there at the race. Go out there and get what you came here to get last year, and I can't wait to see how you do.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
We'll see you at the party tomorrow morning.
Yeah, for sure.
Cheers.
All right, later. All right, we are here with Jimmy Seear, the co-founder and chief technical officer of Ventum in Kona, to talk to him about his diverse experience in the sport. He started as a ITU athlete. He was under 23 world number 1, and then you have kind of made your way from that into a bike designer, owner of a triathlon company, and it gives you a very diverse experience from both the racing and then the design side of things. So we want to talk to you really quick about both of those aspects to see what advice you can give our listeners on how they can become faster athletes and get to Kona themselves. So let's just start with your experience as a professional triathlete. What would be one of your main pieces of advice you would give somebody that you learned as a professional athlete for improving their performance?
I guess when you're looking at the sport, you're looking at multiple aspects from your training. So whether it's the strength or the endurance side of things, your nutrition, and then the equipment you use. Yep. So there's multiple points where you can make yourself faster. With the training side, working with a good coach, having a good squad, having that structure behind you, so you know that you have periodized training leading into events. And then partnering that with a good nutrition plan. A lot of people do not know what they're doing with that. So Daryl Griffith, I believe you guys had on not that long ago. He's
from Shots. Yeah,
from Shots. He's a guru. He's very, very good in helping people understand what the body needs, because not everybody's the same. Where a lot of nutrition plans is like, yep, here you go, good luck.
Yeah, one size fits all kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So having something like that matches your training plan and your body definitely makes a big difference, and having the right equipment as well, because the same equipment doesn't work the same for everybody.
Right.
So it's figuring out which one works best.
Okay. And then as far as the actual training goes, was there anything that you did from a volume or an intensity standpoint where you saw a big jump in your performance?
This will come down to personal athletes. My body's much better suited at endurance and is terrible with speed work.
Okay.
So if I had to do 10-second or 30-second sprints, I was terrible.
Okay.
But if it's a longer effort, like a 30-minute effort or an hour or longer, no problems.
Okay.
So it's figuring out in a race, what do you need to work on? Like, it's good to maximize your strengths.
Yep.
But it's also important to realize what you have as a weakness and improve them. So that's how you become a better rounded athlete.
Okay, and that all comes back to your coach. So your coach should be able to help you identify which, what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was very lucky. I had two very good coaches throughout most of my career.
Yep.
Sean Stevens, I was with him for many, many years, especially my ITU career.
Yep.
He went on to coach Team Sky for a couple of years. And then I worked with Ben Day, who's predominantly a cycling coach, but he's also knows triathlon. We work very closely. So it's looking at, you're looking at your science side of things, but also Ben brought a very good aspect where he was an athlete. He was a professional cyclist. He was on the world stage, pro sort of level cyclist.
Yep.
So he showed that empathy where a science sort of background, you sometimes miss that, where you're like, hey, your numbers say you should hit this, where psychologically you couldn't.
Okay. One of the previous episodes we had too talked about genetics and using genetic testing to help identify what type of athlete you are, what type of muscle composition you have, and that sort of thing. Have you ever done any genetic testing on yourself?
Yeah, I worked with the Australian Institute of
some
Sport.
records, right?
Yeah, I've done everything. So it's I've done everything from you doing tests on your body or how quick you burn or you metabolize your foods. I've done heat training, so you're looking, like I did a lot with Daryl, where you're looking at your sweat loss rate. So you're looking at how much sodium and fluid you're losing per hour, depending on the temperature. So I found out that if I go to a cold race, I'm not going to operate. I basically am useless. But if I go to a hot race, the hotter it was, the better I was.
Okay, wow.
Where some athletes are different. Like some athletes are very good in the cold, but they're not good in the heat. So it depends on what you're sweating, what you're losing sodium-wise, and your other sort of basic needs during that race. Because in a hot race, if you have a low sodium loss or low fluid loss, you're much better in the heat, but working in the cold, it's completely different.
Yeah. So what Daryl talked about on our show, you can say that you've personally done that, and it's
100%.
really helped you a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And it tailors it. So a lot of athletes that I know personally as well, that Daryl's worked with, you can see where some guys are great in the cold and they can't deal with the heat or humidity at all.
Okay.
And then vice versa. Like I did Alcatraz, I think 2012, 13, when it was really, really cold. And I couldn't get my heart rate above 100 because I was so cold. My body just wouldn't function.
Alcatraz, that's a cold race.
It was cold. And where some guys are finding that. And for me, nope, not going to work.
Wasn't happening. Yeah. So just because this number is unbelievable, tell us what your VO2 max was when you tested.
I actually got to go back and check. It was decent. Like there's definitely guys. There's guys better than me.
But you were 84, was it?
I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So for us mere mortals, that's a pretty impressive number.
But a lot of pro athletes, they're high. And it's Like, this is where you can compare, like, you can do all the training in the world, but your your physiological makeup will affect you from your muscle composition, the way you break down your foods. Like, that's the difference. Like, if you're looking at these guys going to race this weekend in Kona, like, you can look at the top guys, you can look at their families, their parents, and you can see, like, you have a certain amount of genetics that can get you to a certain level. It obviously takes a lot of work still, a lot of dedication, and you could have amazing genetics. Like, I've grown up with a lot of athletes who have much better genetics than me, but mentally they're different, or they're not sort of as focused, or however you want to say, and it's like they lose concentration. They don't want to sort of pursue it as hard as they could.
Right. Okay.
Right.
All right. So for age group athletes who don't have all the luxuries of pros with the time and the the training camps and things like that, what are some of the biggest, now that you work with a lot of age groupers, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see them making, or, from a training standpoint and from a time management standpoint?
So there's a big difference between pro athletes trying to train and an age grouper.
Okay.
I was doing 40-hour plus weeks of training, and that's all I did. Where you look at someone who does this sport as an age grouper, they have to manage family. They're typically married. They all have kids. They got jobs. They got other commitments. So how they balance everything, it's impressive because you have to find time to spend enough time with your family. You got to spend time making sure you actually do your job properly, so you have an income. Like, that's a whole nother level. So being able to balance how much training you can get in while doing all your other commitments is very different from a pro athlete.
Okay.
But pro athletes, their job is to wake up, you eat, you sleep, you train, you recover, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you just do it again and again. So with age grouper, you have to look at what you have access to. So a very good friend of mine, a mentor in Australia, Craig Saunders at River City Cycles, his wife was doing Ironmans. She was working. She would normally get up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to get in a long run, a long ride, or get a swim in before she went to work at, I think it was like 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Wow. She would work a full day, and then she'd train in the evening. This is before they had kids. And it was amazing how much training she did. So it's the dedication, but it's what you're able to put up with, but then also listening to your body, because a pro can put the time and the fatigue in the body to strengthen it, where if you can't build that up over time, that a pro athlete can, you are at a higher risk of injury, illness. So that's where you have to play that balance of what can you do without injuring yourself, without making yourself sick.
Listening to your body is one of your biggest pieces of advice for
massive,
very busy age groupers. Okay. So you guys this year are the official global bike partners of Ironman, right?
Yep.
And do you have any idea how many athletes are on Ventum bikes this year?
We've actually grown. I think we're around 55-ish this year.
And you guys have been selling, 2 seasons? This is your second year selling? And
so we started sales January 16.
Okay, yeah.
So we're still very new to the sport.
Yep.
We're growing at a rapid rate. And we're trying our best to do a good job. We try and listen to the customers. We try and deliver a product which we believe is the best we can make while refining it the whole time. So we're always looking at it going, okay, how can we do this better? How can we make it better? Or what are we missing? What can we do there?
Okay. Yep.
So we're always working on that sort of thing. But it's very humbling to see. Like, we came back here where we launched this bike to the world in Kona 15. So to see where we are now, where we're partnered with Ironman, we got a lot of athletes on course, we have bikes globally, like it's sometimes interesting to take a step back going, wow, we've come a long way.
Yeah.
We're here
just your growth since last year. I mean, how much have you grown? How many athletes were here last year?
I think we're in high 30s. So we were the
almost
highest.
Doubled,
and we
crazy.
were the highest non-traditional bike. So non-traditional being sort of a triangular style bike.
Exactly.
So we were the highest bike in that category last year, which was very cool. So you beat companies like Svelo.
Okay.
So this year will be interesting. There's a few more brands coming into that space.
Yeah.
But can we beat them? How much? Like, it's getting competitive because I think people are realizing you don't have to have a traditional triangular frame.
Okay. So the bike that you did design, I mean, it's interesting. We actually met Jimmy and I. It was 2014 here in Kona.
Yep.
And I was in Huggos. Anybody who's been here, Huggos on the Rocks. I was sitting there and at the bar beside a guy and got talking to Jimmy. Never met him before. And within 30 minutes, he's sketching out the shape of this crazy frame on a napkin, telling me, because he found out we had a wheel company. He's like, yeah, my dad and I are putting together this frame in this company. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I didn't know Jimmy. I didn't know he was, and I found out he was a pro triathlete, but it was I remember looking at the napkin going, if he does it, that's going to be pretty cool. So that was that's how we met about in 2014. It's also very interesting because you do come from a tri background. Your father, very cool guy. He's a mechanical engineer by trade, right?
Yep.
And you've told stories about how you guys would rip apart engines. I mean, you could basically take an engine apart with your eyes closed and put it back together. So Jimmy's a very technically minded guy. So coming from the athlete space and then spending a ton of time in a wind tunnel, designing a bike, being in factories and looking at all that stuff, what are some of the things that you've learned from a design perspective that you wish you could have applied to your knowledge as an athlete when you were racing?
It's a blessing and curse with my dad because he's a genius. He's extremely humble, so he'll get very embarrassed to say that. So I've been working on engines and cars since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. So it's great. I've got to work on cars, planes, everything.
Yep.
So I've learned how to design car geometry on suspension or how an engine works. And we make engines from scratch where we'll design the engine, make it from a solid block of aluminium. Not sure how you pronounce that word.
Aluminum.
Yeah.
That's the translation.
You guys add a couple of extra vowels in there, I think.
Aluminium is how the rest of the world says it.
Yeah.
And so we machine that from
we
solid.
don't even say that in Canada.
Canada doesn't care. Yeah. So we make engines. And so when I was an athlete, I was very lucky. I had a very good product that I worked with. Yeah. And Dad and I would always analyze it. We'd always go, oh, look at this wheel. We could make this better.
Right.
And we'd been experimenting. Back in, it would have been about 2004. I was a junior. Dad and I designed and made a 10-spoke carbon wheel, which I actually raced on for a while. It was fantastic. I wouldn't want to put a big person on it, but it was
worked
great.
Well for you, yeah.
It worked great for me. So, yeah, we did a lot of testing on it. It was good. And then we've always done that. So we've done bikes, we've done wheels, we've done all sorts of different equipment.
Yeah.
So when I was an athlete, I got to experiment with that.
Yeah.
In 2005, I had a very good season as a junior. So I was Australian champion. I went to Worlds. I didn't have great Worlds, but I had a great year, and I started picking up sponsors. So sponsors are great because you get to work with companies, and some companies are very open to ideas or something new. So being able to take them those sort of ideas, and leading up to 2009 when I was world number one, it was cool because some brands you're like, hey, I have an idea about the product, how we can make it better.
Right.
And some of them were very receptive. And I've sort of taken that and kind of evolved it. Yep. So after racing ITU and moving to non-drafting, the bike design changes, and I was like, why are we riding these bikes, which are actually quite an old design? We can make it better, we can make it quicker. How do we do it? But also, one of the biggest headaches is as bikes get more integrated, they're annoying to work on. They take more and more time. If you go somewhere and it breaks, it's like, got to find someone who knows what they're doing to fix it.
Right.
So the big thing is you got to make a bike that is super, super aerodynamic or as fast as possible with a rider on it, with the nutrition, with their fluids and everything they need in a race. But you have to travel to and from that race. So how do you design a bike that does both?
Right.
So I guess where the product design came from started very, very young when we're working on cars and all that sort of stuff, because you're learning from a young age problem solving. Like, okay, there's people that, like someone might make something, and you might go, I think there's a more efficient way of doing it or a different way of doing it. It could be better, it could be worse, but you're only going to find out if you do it.
Yeah.
So
cool. One huge question in the sport is obviously fit. With all your experience and now actually designing a bike from the ground up, incorporating fit and different geometries into a bike, what would you advise from a fit perspective for an athlete after being in a tunnel and all.
And let's break that into two categories. Let's start with aerodynamics. So what would you talk about with aerodynamics first for fit?
I guess
some key things.
Fit's extremely important. That's the largest part of drag on the bike. So the rider needs to look at their fit in multiple aspects. One is the aerodynamics.
Right.
You need to be as aero as possible. But your most aerodynamic position might be extremely inefficient with either your breathing, so it could be closing up your diaphragm so you're not inflating your lungs correctly,
okay,
or you're not engaging muscles correctly, so you're not getting a full firing pattern in your legs. So you might have a very aerodynamic position, but you might lose 20, 30, 40% of your power because you can't use it.
Right,
so your breathing's off, your power's off. So you got to look at the balance of, okay, where can I get as efficient as I can aerodynamically while being the most efficient in terms of your breathing, your heart rate, your power output, and balancing it.
So with your experience, what do you, and you have done a lot of fits and tunnels and you've worked with a lot of athletes, how do you find that fit and that balance? What are you actually looking for?
So you're looking at, the most important thing is everybody's body is different. Like you're looking at how flexible they are, have they had previous injuries, how do they sit on the bike? Because you might go, okay, this is a great position, but that position's not going to be the same for someone else because of the way they rotate their hip or the way they sit on the saddle or the way they pedal. Like they might like to be a bit more pigeon-toed or toes out. Like it all depends because everybody's different. So you have to put the person on the bike, figure out how their body works and how it moves, and figure out what's most efficient for them. And then you figure out, okay, how can I make them as quick as possible by looking especially at the front end, so their hands, their elbows, their shoulders, their head.
And what do you see with that? Are there any common trends that you see with hand position, shoulder position, helmets? Like what are some big no-nos versus some things you may steer people to think about if they don't have the experience of getting into a wind tunnel?
I'd say the biggest error is a lot of people will have a big hole in the front where they're not closing up the front end a lot. So you're trying to push the air around you. You don't want it to come through the middle and hit you in the chest and the hips.
And then like a parachute.
It's like a parachute. So you're trying to figure out how to make the person sit on the bike comfortably where you can put someone in an amazing position. They might produce good power. They might breathe well. And they might be very aerodynamic. But they can only hold it for 5 minutes. Then they're moving, and because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, like squirming, looking around. Yeah.
I've had that, where you're not comfortable on the saddle. Maybe the saddle's wrong. Maybe the shoes are wrong. Maybe cleat position's off. Like, you get hot spots on your shoes. So that's where there's a lot of fitters out there. And I've met some amazing fitters, and I've met some people who, they're okay. And it's...
That's polite.
Yeah, but it's a difference. It's like anything in this world. You're going to have someone who's good at what they do and someone who's not as good. I'm not trying to be rude to them, but fit is very, very important. So all I say is any fitter, I want them to know their trade and study it, like, because that's all it is. You can't just guess. It's like throwing a dozen eggs against a wall and hope one doesn't break. Like, you got to understand that everybody's different. Everybody's body works in different ways.
Cool. Yeah. So it's really finding a good fitter who understands the balance between the two. That would be your recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're looking at your equipment and you're asking about helmets. Like, you two are a perfect example. You two are twins. Say I'm fitting you on a bike.
Yep.
So you could try and normalize it and go, okay, we're going to put you guys on the same frame, same wheels, same jerseys, nicks, shoes, everything.
Nicks. Can you explain for the nicks?
Nicks. Bibs.
Bibs.
What do you call them?
Shorts.
Shorts?
All right, little translation for you.
Nicks. So if you're like you two, if you're putting you guys on the exact same setups and put you in the tunnel, you might find that you might test quicker with a cask helmet, you might test quicker with a Giro helmet or something. Yeah. And it all is, when you're looking at it as a package, there's not one perfect scenario. No,
we say that all the time.
Yeah, and there's not. Like,
too many variables.
Yeah, so like I've spent, I don't know, maybe 500 plus hours in a wind tunnel now, testing all sorts of things. And people are like, what's the fastest?
There's no fastest.
That's hard to tell. Unless I take someone to a wind tunnel, I can't do it in one day. And that's with one bike. Like, I can't take someone to a wind tunnel, okay, we've got 5 bikes to test. Let's figure out what's the quickest. It's like, well, it's like, let's say I could take you to the tunnel.
Yeah.
I could put you on, let's just say, a Cervelo, and make you as fast as possible on that bike, and take that position, that setup, and everything, and put it on a Ventum. You might be faster on the Cervelo because you're not optimized on the Ventum.
Right.
So now you got to do a full day of testing on one, another full day of testing on another, because you're just like, okay, well, what helmet are you using? What jersey are you using? Shoes, position. Like, you might find on one bike you're better in a more rounded back position, and it will change your helmet.
But you think about the number of variables with a person on a bike, with wheels, with tires, with brake, everything. Just the number of variables that we see when we test wheels in a wind tunnel. And we're talking tires, tire pressure, and wheels. And so, I mean, the complexity of what you do is it's
huge.
It's huge. It's massive.
And you try and limit your variables as much as possible. A big variable is a rider.
Right.
Because it's hard for a rider to get into a tunnel.
To be consistent.
And be consistent in the power they put out, the cadence. Holding a position is the biggest one.
Yeah.
Because you might go, okay, you might say, okay, you can hold 300 watts for an Ironman. Okay, let's make you hold 180 watts for our testing in the wind tunnel. From the start of that, if you're doing a full 8-hour testing,
you're fatigued.
You won't be able to hold it because you'll get saddle sores, you'll get all sorts of stuff.
Yeah,
and you're shifting, you're moving. It's impossible.
Yeah, cool, awesome, man. Well, that's some really good info. Thank you for coming on the show, and I think our listeners are really going to love this. So thanks a lot, man.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Good luck at the race.
Thank you.
All right. We have Rachael Norfleet here from Kansas joining us. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Very good.
Thanks.
Enjoying the island?
Yeah. It's good to be here.
Pretty beautiful spot. Yeah. So we wanted to have you on the show today because I want to tell a little bit of a backstory with how I met you. You're obviously very, very fast. We're going to talk about that, but you do some other really cool things in the sport that I like, and I think it's kind of unique, and we wanted to talk about it. So I met you in Lake Placid, right? Mm-hmm. You were working for Rachael. We had a Bike for a Kid event there, and we went for a swim after the first day, and you put up a picture on your Instagram story.
Yeah.
And in a matter of time, I was getting messages from these triathlon girls that I know in Las Vegas who were like, oh my God, you met my idol. I can't believe it. She's amazing. And I will admit, I didn't really know who you were at the time. And then we went to dinner with the Ironman Foundation, and they asked me what I did after the event. And I said I went for a swim. And the girls were like, with Rachael? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh my God, she's amazing. I follow her workouts. She's so incredible. So I did a little research, and I've learned that you are very motivational. You inspire other women in the sport, and you're a very positive person in the sport. And you don't see that a lot, unfortunately, and I thought it was really cool. So I wanted to bring you on to talk about how you got into that a little bit and what inspires you to help inspire other women. Because when you started in the sport, you had a swimming background, but on your Zwift Academy page, you put your wetsuit on backwards for the first time, right?
I did do that. Yep.
Yeah. So it's so cool that you've come from this very humble background, and now you're at the top of your age group, and you're helping other women. So just talk a little bit about what inspires you to do that.
Yeah. I think, growing up, there was a lot of can't in my language. I struggled in math in school, and I just thought that's just something I can't do. And, coming from a swimming background, when a friend of mine suggested that I race triathlon, I was just like, I don't think that's something I can do, as a sprinter, and that's long course racing. And so there's a lot of can't still in my language. And I think that triathlon for me, training, once I committed to this goal of, training for my first triathlon, a lot of that can't came out of my language. And I just kind of saw how it really changed my life. And I think that that's what I try to just share with others, my experiences, and and it's cool to see how it changes others.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that, because it's really, really cool to see people do that. Okay, so let's talk about, you had a swimming background.
Correct.
So you had an endurance background, but your first race was a half Ironman, right?
Yes.
And what was your time?
I don't remember exactly. It was something right around 6 hours.
6 hours. So respectable, but not in your speedy category now, right? So let's talk a little bit about how you went from a 6 hour half to your best Ironman now is
10:22.
10:22, which is blazing fast. And what's your best half?
4:42.
4:42. Okay, so very, very, very good time. So, what are some of the main things that you did to go from a 6 to a 4:42 and down to a 10:20 Ironman?
Yeah. I don't think that it's always so much about the fitness. Like sometimes maybe your fitness is there, but there are so many other factors that come into play in triathlon. Like, figuring out your nutrition is huge, and that can take you from a 4-hour something to, a 6-hour if you mess that up. So a lot of trial and error. But then I also think just consistency over time.
Nice.
Kind of pulled some of that off.
Okay. So just trying to stay injury free, consistent, and just keep going like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And just to you're in the 18 to 24 age group, just to give our listeners who are trying to get here a little bit of an idea of what it takes. Your FTP is
256.
256.
Yeah.
And your weight, you said you were 59 kilos?
Yes.
And we worked that out to be what, 4.35 watts a kilo?
Yeah.
Okay, so you are, for other women listening, you don't need to be that high to get here. Rachael could go pro probably at this race with that number. So very, very good. But that's super cool. Okay.
So you are part of the Zwift Triathlon Academy.
Yes.
Looks like a joint effort between Specialized and Zwift to put together a really cool amateur team that's highly supported.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this was something that they put out maybe like last November. I saw an application floating around on Facebook, I think, and read into it. It's, Specialized and Zwift came together to create the most heavily supported amateur team.
Yeah.
And of course that was appealing to me. So I applied just kind of on a whim and was accepted. So
Awesome.
It's been,
And so from what I've heard, there were thousands of applicants. And how many did they actually pick? Can you walk us through that process and the qualifications a little bit? What did that look like?
Yeah. So they picked 4 of us.
Yep.
And to qualify, the application asked like what level you were at on Zwift. So they obviously wanted you to have spent some time on that. They asked kind of about, your background in racing, a little bit about yourself. They wanted, I think they wanted people who could tell a story and, interact with people in the community. But then they also, what else? Oh, you had to be wanting to qualify for Kona. So you had to be attempting that. So.
Yeah. And so you part of the role with this team is that you do interact with the community. So what do you guys do as a team? Do you have certain events that you need to be at? Are you at certain speaking engagements? Anything like that? What do you do?
Yeah, they've done a lot of different things. We've like at camp, they had the Global Triathlon Network come and do some stuff with us, interviews, and Chris just picked me up from a group run at Lava Java that we put on. So, and we've done a couple of things like that here this week just because we're here and a lot of people do use Zwift. But yeah, we led group workouts on the app.
Really?
On Zwift. Yeah.
Oh, really?
So we had like a 10-week Tri Academy workout session. So we would all lead, we took turns leading the workouts on there.
And so you are a Zwift user. I'm assuming you're more of a Zwift user now that you're on the team.
It's funny, I use it just as much now as I did before.
Okay.
Living in Kansas City, we have really harsh winters. And so January to May training for an Ironman, I rode outside literally 4 times. So everything else was on Zwift.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it, even when it's not awful outside, I still use it just because it's safer. Our roads aren't great there. So it's just a great training tool.
Cool. And now
what's your longest training session on Zwift?
This is going to make people cringe. 4.5 hours.
I don't know how people do that.
At least it's Zwift. It's fun. Have you had any interaction specifically with Specialized? Were you able to go out and see any of their facilities, work with them in their wind tunnel, anything like that?
Yeah. So we had a training camp in July, and they brought us out to Morgan Hill. We got new bikes. We all are riding brand new shivs right now.
Ooh, wow.
And we were all wind tunnel tested on those. So they really, massively helped us.
And when you say you went out, you mean the team, the 4 people that were selected that went to the team?
Yeah.
And so who else is on the team? Is it a mixture of men, women? What happened there?
Yeah, so there are 2 females and 2 males, myself and a girl named Bex. She's an ex-pro cyclist,
Cool.
phenomenal athlete. And then the 2 guys, there's one named Golo. He is a doctor from Germany. And then Geert, unfortunately, he was the one that didn't make the team, but he's actually still out here supporting.
He didn't make the team or didn't qualify for Kona?
Oh, sorry. He made the team. He didn't qualify for Kona this year.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
But I think that's kind of a part of the story, right? They wanted for people who could engage with others and tell their story. And like, unfortunately, sometimes that's part of the story.
I thought for me you got the axe if you didn't qualify for Kona. I was like, oh, that's a little rough. That's kinda harsh.
No, so he's still here and hanging out with us.
So let's just talk real quick about your wind tunnel experience. Would you have considered yourself a tech person with the bike and stuff before? Okay, so for someone who wasn't a tech person, what did you think about the wind tunnel? What did you learn from it?
Yeah, so I'm like not a data driven person at all. Like I'm just kind of, like I rode a road bike for like 2 years when I first started and I was just like, if you work hard, good things will happen. And I wasn't really into the technical stuff, but I learned a lot. Like I thought I had a pretty good setup before, like, I'd gotten a new bike and things were pretty dialed, but when I went there, I was like, I knew nothing. Like they totally ripped apart my fit. And like, we learned so much from that. It was so valuable.
And if you had one tip or pointer that you could tell other people, what might it be? Was there one thing that kind of stuck out for all athletes that were there?
I think I just learned the importance of getting a bike fit.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I learned so many things about my body. Like the guy looked at me and he's like, your tibias are bowed. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, that's going to affect like the way that you come down on the pedal stroke. Like we need to, we've moved my pedals out 4 millimeters on each side because he's like, you're not getting as much power out of that.
Yeah, no, it's very important.
I would have never known that.
Yeah. And did you, for anybody that's listening that thinks that this team sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Do you know the plans for next year's team? Are they expanding it? Are you like grandfathered in and they're going to keep the 4? You know what's going on there?
I don't know all the details yet, but I do know that they're releasing the application soon and that they will have a team of some sort. So I would highly encourage anyone to apply. It's been really great.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, a couple more things before we go.
Yeah.
Want to talk about your fear of open water, which you have overcome, it sounds like. So for other listeners who, maybe have a swimming background but are still afraid of open water, what are some of the things that you've done to overcome that fear? Because that's a big thing with triathlon that a lot of people don't talk about. So what have you done?
So it's funny because he says I've overcome it. I don't think I have, and I don't think I ever will, but I think it's important to realize that like, you can have fears and still live with them and work through them each time. So like when I come here, it's always helpful for me to swim with people. So if I go out with 400 of my best friends, I feel a lot more comfortable than just going out by myself. So that's been really helpful for me. And I feel like if I do that a couple of times in the week, then I'm fine.
The coffee is a good incentive too, right?
The coffee boat. I mean, it's so great. If anything can get me out there.
And the fear is not really, like you say, it doesn't really go away. It's just something you learn to cope with, to deal with versus panic and not do it, right?
Yeah.
So, it makes total sense.
Okay, cool. And then your Instagram is awesome, and I know you do a lot of work on that. So how can people find you on Instagram?
My Instagram, it used to be Trials of Life, Love, and Fitness, but I've actually just changed it to my name. So it's Rachael Norfleet, @Rachael Norfleet. So
okay, and you have how many followers? This is impressive.
I think I have 16,000.
Which is more than a lot of the companies in the sport.
So and Rachael is spelled because it's not a traditional Rachael spelling. Is that correct?
It can be.
Is it?
Yeah, it's Rachael. So I have they in there.
I first read it and I was like, is that Raquel?
You never know.
Okay, and then I have one request before we go.
Yeah.
So my friend who I worked in Las Vegas at a hospital, I volunteered.
Yeah.
And she was a pediatric nurse in the hospital. Her name is Janie. She is your biggest fan. When I swam with you in Lake Placid, she was
sweet.
she was so excited and just like, I hope one day I get to meet her. So she is racing Ironman Louisville in I think it's Sunday, right?
It's Sunday. It's the day after ours. So
yes. So if you could wish her good luck on her race, I think that would make her life.
Oh my gosh, good luck. It's funny because she's reached out to me before and told me how much my story means to her, but people forget. Like I think that her story is so cool, and I really admire her for what she does. So best of luck. We will all be cheering you on. I think you are a phenomenal human and athlete. So always cheering for you.
Awesome. And she is a sweetheart. So
very sweet.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I know you have a very busy week. Go out there, have a blast on Saturday. And I think there's going to be some good things coming out of your race results. So.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to listen to episode 16, where we interview OBGYN Dr. Sharon Bayun to learn how women can safely manage endurance training while pregnant. Guys, if your partner is pregnant, we'll have plenty of good information for you as well. If you enjoyed the show, please help us by sharing our podcast and by leaving a rating or review. If you want to learn more about our company, FLO Cycling, please visit us online at flowcycling.com. That's F as in Frank, LOCYCLING.com. You can also find us under Flow Cycling on Facebook and Instagram. Until next time, ride safe.